Welcome, everybody. Thank you again for joining us during this third week of session spotlights for Convergence 2026. This is an opportunity for you to get to know our upcoming leaders, the sessions, and give you a better idea of what you would like to sign up for during Convergence 2026. Today, we are going to be hearing from Carol James, Stacy Schlutsmeyer, Becka Rahn, Alanna Wilcox, and Melissa Weaver-Dunning. Registration is indeed open. We've got priority registration ongoing right now with general registration opening up on November 10th. So if you're interested in getting a head start on signing up and want to make sure you get a spot before the classes fill up, please head online or give us a call and we would be happy to help. As a reminder, Convergence 2026 will be taking place in New Orleans, Louisiana from August 12th through the 16th. You can find a digital copy of the registration booklet online. There, you'll see all kinds of information about the different sessions and events taking place, including the marketplace, exhibits, fashion show, keynote speaker tours, and more. We will be hosting over 100 sessions, ranging from 90-minute seminars to 3-day workshops. As we learn more about some of these workshops today, please put any questions that you have in the Q&A section. This is your time to get answers directly from the instructors. First up today, we've got Carol James, who's going to be talking about stretchy garments in history, or what's Sprang.
Okay, so I'm thinking that perhaps one of your big questions is, what's Sprang anyhow? You'll say you're a weaver, you've been into textiles for years and years, and you never heard of Sprang. It can't be interesting. This talk is for you, and you will be very glad to have signed up for what I want to say. Let me get to my Zoom presentation here. Let's see. I need to share screen. Can you see it now?
It is not up yet.
Oh, bugger. Let's see. Zoom. I have to hit share screen. That's what it is. Sorry. Okay. Do you see it now?
There we go. It's loading. Yep, perfect.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So you're wondering, how come you haven't ever heard about Sprang before? And to be honest, I had no idea about what it was either in my textile journey until there were some military reenactors asked me to make sashes for their outfits. The British Army in 1776 wore Sprang sashes, like this gentleman at the lower left. Even George Washington personally owned 2 of these sashes. Someone from the local reenactment community asked me to make him sashes. Being young, I thought I knew everything, but I didn't know what this technique was, and I had to learn. The Sprang technique is most likely older than weaving. Technically, it's a braid. There's no weft. You set threads on a frame, and threads interact with neighboring threads to create cloth. And the amazing thing is, for every row of work you do, you get 2 rows of cloth. What does that mean? Sign up for the talk. If nothing else, you'll learn about a textile technique that defies the rules of weaving. My presentation at Convergence is a combination of video, PowerPoint, and live demonstration. I'll begin with a demonstration how the technique works, how you get threads to hold together without a weft. You'll see how this makes for a very stretchy cloth. And this explanation will also help you understand the images I'm going to show you of these things throughout history. The earliest examples of this method date to like the Bronze Age. It was known in Scandinavia and northwest of China at this time. These textile pieces turned up in archaeological excavations of human civilizations, and it's one of the many methods used in ancient times to make cloth. This is my replica, but we'll talk about the originals and why experts say these were Sprang. The technique was also known to ancient Greeks, Romans, Persians. It's reflected in their artwork. Okay, artwork is not a reliable method to verify textile structure. The evidence is quite convincing. There's more to this picture. The Greeks, their enemies, and the Romans used the technique to make hats, even tight-fitting, body-hugging garments. And I'll show you some of the research supporting these claims. The ancient Egyptians did leave us physical examples of this type of work. There's some amazing ideas for color work and surface design. The pieces you're looking at here are drawn from the collection, such as the Kelsey Museum in Ann Arbor, Michigan. How do we know they're Sprang? Come to the talk and I will convince you. Was the technique ever done in Europe? Yes, there's evidence from all across Europe in artworks and paintings. Again, you're going to say painters and stained glass artists. That's not convincing evidence of a textile method. You ask, how do you know it's Sprang? Sign up for the talk and I will present the evidence. I think I'm going to convince you that from England to Russia, from Norway to Greece, we have evidence of Sprang, from hats to socks to sashes, belts, regional costumes, as well as military sashes were made using the Sprang technique all across Europe. The technique was known in North America. Historic Williamsburg selection includes Sprang items such as this purse. At Williamsburg, they told me that they have no doubt the technique was known. They didn't find evidence of it being done in colonial Williamsburg, but the pieces are there. George Washington owned at least 2 Sprang sashes, and it was believed that he was wearing such a sash when he sat for this portrait by Charles Wilson Peale. So we've come around back to military sashes, and maybe military isn't your thing, but instead of a sash, think shawls. You can make lovely shawls using this technique. Sprang was known in North America before Europeans came. We find evidence of this technique in both North and South America. We'll talk about that. And you're thinking, if it was so well known, so widespread, how come nobody knows about it today? And I've got a theory about that. I'll talk about that. You need to come to the talk. The technique is exceedingly adaptable, from lacy open work to very dense windproof. How is that possible? They say if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, but that's not the case with Sprang. The presentation is not just about the images. I'll have actual pieces on hand. You'll want to touch these things, feel how it stretches, feel what George Washington's sash felt like, handle these things, and I will have pieces on hand for you to do that. I'm hoping the takeaway is twofold. One is a rudimentary understanding of how the process works. Secondly, is a respect for the place this technique has in history. Sprang is what they did in ancient times when they needed stretch in their clothing, but hadn't yet invented spandex. So let's see. Go back to my picture. Well, no, I need to stop share. That's what it is, because I'm going to show you. You will be able to hold these things in your hand and experience the incredible amount of stretch that you get with this technique. It's just, see the color work. I'll have these on hand for you. That's my 90-minute PowerPoint presentation about Sprang.
Well, I can already tell that this is going to be a fun one. I'm excited. All this convincing you're going to do is going to be so great.
I have given this talk to other guilds, and it's always got really positive reviews.
Wonderful. I am excited. So I just want to point out a couple things for folks tuning in. So this class, this is the 90-minute seminar. There's no material fee. Do they need to bring anything with them, or can they just show up as they are? Wonderful. And you mentioned that there's going to be a live demo. I love that there's going to be the samples for folks to touch. During that live demo, will people have the opportunity to try doing a couple of the, I'm going to call it twists because I don't know the proper language for Sprang either.
There were in that slideshow, there was a picture of me with a little frame there. I will have that frame there. You can stand in line and,
Wonderful.
Try. Yeah.
And we've got one other question that came in here. Is this technique, can this be done using like a thinner yarn like cotton?
Oh, you know what? You can use really fat. You can use sewing thread, any kind. It's a technique. So what kind of thread is appropriate to use on your weaving loom? That's the same question with Sprang.
Okay, awesome. Wonderful. This sounds like such a great technique. Thank you so much for giving us that overview of the lecture. Again, that was Carol James talking about the Stretchy Garments in History, or What's Sprang 90-minute seminar that's going to be taking place on Friday, August 14th. Up next, we've got Stacy Schlutsmeyer, who's going to be talking about getting unstuck with tablet weaving.
Hi. So thank you for having me here. I'm super excited to come to my first Convergence. So this class is going to be a 3-hour seminar, and hopefully a discussion and lecture is the goal. So this was inspired by several discussions I had with people where they had taken a class or some form of or tried tablet weaving and had found themselves in some way stuck. And they wanted to keep doing tablet weaving, but they weren't quite sure how to proceed. And so this this seminar is aimed to get at some of these issues that in teaching a tablet weaving class, you typically don't have time to get to. And because you're so busy teaching the technique, but there's all these other things around doing tablet weaving that are important. So the first part of the seminar is going to focus on equipment. The biggest thing is going to be looms. There are a whole lot of loom options. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can set up to do tablet weaving. But typically in a class, or even if you read a book, they're going to present one way of doing it. It's a lot simpler. You know, as a teacher, I definitely understand that it makes it easier if I have all the class on the same equipment, so I don't have to be teaching different people different ways of doing things. But when you're on your own at home, it's good to know about all these different options. So we'll go through the different pros and cons of different looms that are available, and have a pretty in-depth discussion of that. But we'll also talk about other equipment, you know, shuttles, cards, what yarns are good to use. We'll get into all of that kind of stuff in the first part of the lecture, and then the second part I kind of think of as process. And that's going to be the main thing there is going to be focusing on patterns, because one of the challenges in the tablet weaving world is that sorry, one of the challenges is that there are many different ways of writing patterns, of doing pattern notation. In fact, it seems like nearly every author who has written about tablet weaving has created their own form of notation. So we'll do a bit of an overview of sort of some of the general mechanics of tablet weaving that will inform us in how to approach a pattern draft, and make sure we know how to interpret that pattern draft correctly and be able to successfully look at different kinds of pattern drafts and be able to read them. I'll also be covering various tips and tricks of just things that will make your tablet weaving process a little easier. So that's the main. I'll have some equipment and things that people can look at. And I absolutely welcome questions from anyone who's taking the class. If there's something that you are getting stuck on, please bring questions with you. There will be a full color handout that I give, and hopefully we'll just have a fun time talking about tablet weaving.
I love how this sounds almost like you're describing this as almost like a deeper dive. I feel like you're going to get kind of the basics across the board instead of as focused as it sounds like it needs to be in an individual workshop, which I think is great for intermediate folks and beyond, maybe who have some of those different tools. But this also seems like it could be a great introduction for somebody who's maybe considering tablet weaving. Would that be correct? Because they'll get to kind of have an idea of all the different tools at their disposal.
Yeah, I think it can be sort of for anyone with any level. I mean, it probably helps to have at least a sense of what tablet weaving is before coming into the class. But yeah, if you are looking at getting into it, especially for things like, you know, buying a loom, it'll help you make a more informed decision about what you might want to purchase for a loom, or what you think might work best for you.
Amazing. And I know you mentioned kind of maybe bringing some specific questions that folks might have. Is there anything else people need to bring for this one?
Just note-taking materials. This is really just a lecture.
Wonderful.
Or again, hopefully more of a discussion than a lecture, but.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for going over that class with us again. That was Stacy Schlutsmeyer talking about getting unstuck with tablet weaving, the 3-hour seminar taking place on August 14th. Up next, we've got Becka Rahn, who's going to be going over the From Studio to Screen, teaching fiber arts virtually.
Great. Hi, thank you. Welcome to my studio. I'm here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and looking forward to coming to another Convergence conference. I've been once before. So this class, it's a 3-hour seminar, so it's all about different ways of teaching online. So a little, just my background, when sort of the pandemic hit and all of the in-person classes that I was teaching pretty much got canceled, I had the local county library system reach out to me and they said, you know what? You are like the techiest artist we know. Can you help us figure out how to do online classes? And I said, sure, why not? Let's figure it out. And so I started working with them and finding ways that we could do online classes before everybody knew how to use Zoom, and before all of that worked. So now I teach about 6 or 8 different online classes every month. That's a huge part of my art practice is teaching these online classes. I teach on Zoom. I teach pre-recorded classes on my website. I also teach for Skillshare, which are also pre-recorded video lessons. So we're going to talk about like all the different ways that those virtual teaching opportunities, like how they're going to work. So I'm going to share my screen, a couple of different things. I'm going to show you first is a little slideshow of some photos here. And it just jumped right to the very first one is kind of my setup. I'm going to bring this entire setup with me to class, so we can talk about it. And so you, as the instructor, the potential instructor, you can sit right down at my setup and say, does this work for me? Can I do something like this in my studio? So I'm going to talk about all the different equipment that I have, and that's kind of what this little diagram is showing. And in fact, this is the same setup that's sitting right in front of me here right now. So I'm going to bring all of this and we're going to talk about all the different aspects. I want to sort of emphasize one thing about this is that my entire setup for all these classes that I do and all the different things, aside from my laptop, the whole setup cost me less than $200. And this is what I use every day from my studio. So I want to make it sort of accessible and approachable and about using what you have in really smart ways. So here's a little view of where I'm sitting right now, and you can see a little bit of my setup. I have to say this photo makes my studio look a lot cleaner than it usually is. So a little bit there of we're going to kind of start out the class talking about the technical aspects of it. And I'm going to set up the whole setup and in fact, bribe my sisters into coming and being some test students for us. So you can see what it looks like from the teacher side instead of as the student side. All right, I'm going to switch over now. So once we talked about all the technical stuff, then we're going to jump into, and I'm going to swap over my screen share now and show you a little setup here. We're going to talk about some of the sort of technical, and my screen sharing, there it goes. There. Sort of the technical bits of teaching online. So this picture in picture is a new feature in Zoom. So I'll show you how to set that up. My overhead camera setup. Right now, I'm working on this new pattern for my Etsy shop. So I just left that set up on my desk. But I'm going to show you how to do an overhead camera setup like this. Mine is set so that I can zoom in and zoom out really easily, so that I can show people close up how to do detailed techniques and stuff like that. All of this is going to be things that we're going to do in this seminar and talk about. And then the very last part is we're going to talk some strategies for what makes a good online class. So one of the hardest parts for me that I didn't anticipate when I first started teaching online is you are teaching to a whole bunch of black boxes on a screen in a room by yourself. And I think that's maybe the hardest part of getting started for teaching online classes is kind of getting past that you're in an empty room by yourself and you feel like you're talking to yourself. So we're going to talk about ways to sort of work through that and ways to make your classes a little more interactive and to keep people engaged and to do things that kind of take the virtual class and add some more dimension to it.
Fantastic. This sounds like such a wonderfully interactive experience to kind of, like you said, actually get to see what folks are doing.
Yeah.
And
I have a good friend who that was her whole barrier to teaching online, was that she just couldn't imagine what it would look like from her perspective. And that was keeping her from doing anything at all. So that's what I'm hoping to kind of help people through.
to break through that. Yeah. And I also loved how you mentioned at the end, I know um, even during Spinning and Weaving Week, which just happened, there were a handful of new folks to teaching virtually. And you mentioned those black boxes, and they said the same thing. They're like, I'm an art teacher, but I'm used to having like 30 sets of eyes looking at me all the
Yeah.
time. It was so weird, like this different environment. So I love that you're going to be addressing that and going over some tips and tricks. This sounds like such a wonderful program for anybody who is considering online teaching of any kind. So thank you so much.
Yes, thanks.
Again, that was Becka Rahn talking about the From Studio to Screen Teaching for Fiber Arts Virtually, which is a 3-hour seminar that's going to be taking place on Sunday, August 16th. Up next, we've got Alanna Wilcox, who's going to be talking about the Spin Your Own Yarn for Weaving, the Drop Spindle workshop.
Hello, and thank you so much for letting me present today to tell you about this workshop. So for those of you that don't know me, my background is that I am a master spinner, but I am also a weaver. And so with being a master spinner, what that means is that I've gone through this program that is a spinning certificate program where you learn everything that there is to know about spinning and yarn construction. And why that's so important for weavers is that the types of yarns that you use as a weaver can be so like varied and different, right? So you have your yarns that you have for your warp, and you have yarns for your weft, and the structural qualities and properties of those yarns can be vastly different. And so if you're interested in learning how to make yarn for weaving, then this is a wonderful opportunity to learn how to do that. And instead of taking a class with a spinning wheel that might be really expensive equipment to have to buy and invest in, this is a great way to kind of get your you know, your toe dipped in the water of yarn spinning in another rabbit hole. And I warn you that it is a little bit addicting, okay? So the tool that we're going to be using is called a drop spindle, and it looks something like this. And there are lots of different types. So the one that I have posted on the material list is what is called a top whirl drop spindle. And the way that the drop spindles work so that you can see and make an educated choice. And if you're thinking of signing up for the class, I want you to feel free to reach out and, you know, check with me to see if the drop spindle is a good fit for the types of yarns that you want to weave and use in your woven projects, right? Because different people have different needs, whether you're making garments. So I have things here like this skirt, for example, that it's upside down. Hang on. So this skirt over here that, you know, I've used my hand spun on. Okay, so it's going to be very different for the weft versus if you want to make something like this that's a pouch where you want, you know, there to be a lot more structure to the yarn and not to have pilling because of abrasion, right? So depending upon the types of projects that you like to create, the types of fabric that you want to create when you're weaving, you're going to want to also make an educated choice about the tool that you bring to the workshop. So I'm not going to be providing the drop spindles, but I'm going to be providing everything else. Okay, so this tool here is going to be what we're going to be used to create the yarn, and I'm going to basically start with the fiber. So we're going to start with wool, and I'm going to walk you through the entire process over the course of 2 days. So we're going to start off with some grease fleece, so basically freshly shorn off of a sheep, not quite in Louisiana. I'm gonna bring it with me. But we're going to start off with fresh fleece, and then I'm going to walk you through the process so that you can see, you know, what it's like to wash the wool, how to prepare the wool, all of the different phases and steps of getting the fiber into yarn so that you can decide one, which, phase of the yarn construction do you enjoy, but also how can you then use the drop spindle to make the yarn you want, because each of those different phases of the yarn construction are going to play a really vital role in how the yarn is going to behave and perform in the fabrics that you create. So if you want, I can do a little bit of a demonstration also while talking about some of the things that we're going to cover. So the way that it works, basically, just to do a quick demo before learning how in the class, because it always looks easier, right, when someone knows what they're doing. But I'm going to take a little bit of wool here. So this is called comb top, and it's been dyed already. So this is prepared and good to go. And there's yarn that's already attached to the drop spindle. And so I'm going to feed it on like so. And the thing that I love about teaching spinning is that even though it is an art, right? Like we're creating something that's a one of a kind, unique thing. There's also science and physics and math in it, and I love combining, the creative right side and the logical left side of the brain, and bringing both of those worlds together. So because it's physics, there's energy and twist involved. So basically, the way that it works is that if I take the shaft of the spindle and I spin it, there's going to be twist that's going to accumulate. And you can see, let's go in front of the camera so you can see that it's going to be this stored energy. And so what happens is if I go and I pull or attenuate the fibers apart, let's see if we can get this on camera, right? So you can see that there is no twist there, but if I let go, the twist will travel. So I'm letting go, you see, and it traveled, and it holds it together. So now it's cohesive. And so the more that I do that, the more that I pinch and pull the fiber apart and then let go and allow the twist to travel, it's going to now make a cohesive piece of yarn, right? And so the more that I do this, the longer, the piece of yarn is going to become. So I'm going to get you to a point where you're going to be really comfortable doing this. And then again, because it's physics, the yarn, sorry about that, I didn't mean to hit the spindle against the microphone. So because there's twist energy, you can see how it's like all lively and springy. When we take two strands that have twist that was going in the clockwise direction and we put them together, what's going to happen is they're going to want to stick together kind of like glue here. So I'm going to go to the end here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help it along and kind of just twist it a little bit to go in the opposite direction. And if I encourage it and I let go, you can see, wait, hang on, I'm trying to get in front of the camera. There we go. Okay, so you can see how it turned into a piece of yarn, right? Wait, there we go. Okay, it's very difficult to do this with an overhead camera since it's more of like a vertical creation orientation style, but you can see very quickly how I've created yarn. Now, while it's fast to do or create, like that, in the demonstration aspect of it, understanding what are the qualities and properties that we want to have in our yarn and how to infuse those into the yarn through, like I said, the preparation methods, the fiber choices that we use, what we're doing with our hands, all of those things are going to impact the kind of yarns that we create. And so in this 2-day workshop, I'm going to teach you how to take this tool of the drop spindle and use it to create the yarns for your project. So if there's any questions, please, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, you were not kidding. You made that look so easy. And I know it's not that easy. So, I do have a couple questions, some things I just want to highlight. So
Okay.
you mentioned that folks need to bring their own spindle. Is there anything else that they should be prepared to bring along with them?
Well, if, for example, you are someone that has fiber that you want to learn how to spin. So if you're someone that is interested in learning how to use a certain type of fiber, like if you want to learn how to spin cotton, that's going to be a different tool that you're going to use. So that would be more of what is called a supported spindle like this. So this one over here is like a different type of spindle, right? So if people want to reach out and tell me what it is that they hope to learn how to spin the yarn for, I can let them know what the best spindle to bring is. Now we're going to be spinning wool, so we're not gonna start everybody off with cotton, but I can at least tell you the weight of the spindle, because that's also important too, right? So the weight of the spindle, most people will think that a bigger spindle is going to make more yarn, so let me get the biggest one. But really, the bigger they are, the heavier they are, so they're meant for thicker yarns. So if you're someone that is interested in making a thinner, lacier, finer fabric, then you might want to go with a lighter weighted spindle or something that's like smaller and more delicate. So that's why it's really important for me to have a conversation with people before they sign up so that I can make sure that they're getting the best tool for the job. Now, I put a generic beginner student spindle for the class so that it's, on the cheaper side. It's going to still be functional and work as far as learning. But if you would like to, learn more about the type of tool specifically for the yarns you want to create moving forward, like if you, want to have something that, you're really dead set on spinning, and this is something that you want to invest in a better tool than just like a beginner quality spindle for, then I can point you in the direction and also bring fibers that can help people, because when I teach, I really like to make things very custom and personalized to my students.
Yeah, it sounds very customizable. So I know you mentioned that this is beginner, like you can come
Yes.
to this as a beginner level, but it also sounds like with these differences in the spindles and the different kinds of materials and yarns that this could also maybe be beneficial for an intermediate spinner if they're just looking to learn a different style. Is that correct?
Sure, yeah. So if you're someone that, is a wheel spinner, and you would like to learn a more portable way to spin, like if you want to, go to a spinning guild meeting and spinning on your wheel is something that it's just really cumbersome, it's too heavy to big, or, you don't want to risk breaking it. I'm going to be teaching not only, like I said, the actual, act of spinning, the creation of the yarn, but I really like to get into, like I was talking about, the physics and the science behind the yarn construction. So I really like to make sure that people understand what the choices that they are making, how that is going to influence the fabrics that they create. And also, because this is geared towards weavers, if anyone has a pin loom, I didn't put it on the material list, but this is just like an optional thing to bring. If you have a pin loom, right, you can then make these lovely little swatches of your hand spun yarn to sample. And so then you can decide, okay, I really like the way that this yarn behaves, or what choices you need to make as a spinner to then change your yarn before, like spinning, let's say 5 pounds of fleece, for example, right, for a project. You can just do little samples and swatches. And I know these ones are dyed different colors, but it will allow you then to just sample and see different spinning techniques. So if people wanted to do that as well, I encourage you to do that.
I love that. And those little swatches are just so cute.
Yes, they are.
I think the last thing I just want to maybe point out here, um, you said you're going to bring everything else for folks, and there is an $18 material fee.
Yes,
Could you maybe
yes.
give us a little bit more insight of what they're going to get for that fee?
Yes. So basically what I do, because we're going to be doing more than just, like I said, just spinning. I have down here, so this is the fiber that I was using for spinning the yarn. But I'm going to also be bringing, like I said, some raw fleece. So I like to take, this might be blowing the surprise, but I like to take field trips when I teach this class. So we might go to the bathroom and then wash the fleece in the bathroom. So I like to bring some samples, like I said, of the raw fleece for students to have and then to prepare, so that you can then use the different tools that I have. So I'm going to be bringing things like my hand carders and hand combs for people to prepare fiber, and spin those different types of fibers as well. It's going to also be for handouts, but mainly it's going to be for the different types of fibers that we're going to be blending and spinning together to get all the different types of yarns that a weaver might want for both weft and for warp.
Amazing. Thank you so much for telling us more about this class. It sounds like it's going to be such a good one, and I can't wait to see all the different types of fiber that you guys create.
Awesome.
Again, that was Alanna Wilcox, who was going over the Spin Your Own Yarn for Weaving Drop Spindle workshop, which is the 2-day workshop taking place Wednesday and Thursday, August 12th to the 13th. And last but not least for today, we welcome Melissa Weaver-Dunning, who is going to be talking about the L'amour du Maman seminar.
Hello. This is about my 3-hour seminar, which is called L'amour de Maman. That means a mother's love, which is the Acadian term for a dowry. And oh wait, I need to share my screen, don't I? Yes, please. Why can't I reach that? Well, that's funny.
Yeah, it looks like it popped up. Maybe stop the screen share and restart it. Maybe something
Yeah.
funky happened.
I'll try doing it from the screen instead of from my keyboard. There. Okay, there we go. That looks better. Yes. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the first French settlers who came to what is now the Maritime Provinces of Canada. They came originally to what we now know as Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Cape Breton, and parts of the Quebec shore. And so I'll be telling you all about that, where they came from, when they came, and what they got up to, and then how they were kicked out of that area, how they were basically sent into exile for 10 years, and eventually ended up in Louisiana. And we're going to look at some museums from French Canada, from the Acadian areas, and we're going to look at bed linens. In this picture, we see a typical bed. They only used 2 harness looms. So you'll see weft stripes, but also a variety of other interesting ways to manipulate weft to create texture. So here we've got a spool rack and a bobbin or spool winder and a bed with all different kinds of linens. And this is a typical loom from French Acadia in Canada. And this is the Picardy style of spinning wheel, where the flyer is, instead of between the maidens, it's between the maidens and the spinner. It sticks out to the side, and we'll look at that more closely. We're going to talk about specific fabrics, and on the left we have Catalan, which is a type of bed covering made with rags. And for the wedding blanket, the couverture de mariage, a girl would save white rags from the time she was very young so that she would have enough to weave a whole bed cover. They also used boutonnet, which is a raised loop weaving. And this blanket on the right is from Quebec, but we know that the Acadians also practiced this technique because it appears in the Louisiana traditions. When they got to Louisiana, the main thing that changed was that they no longer worked with wool, but they worked with cotton. And they worked primarily with coton jaune or brown cotton. So this is a Catalan, and instead of being woven with rags, it's woven with a very thick hand-spun cotton weft, about as big around as your pinky. And the seam with the blanket was inevitably very thick and bumpy, so they slept with the seam side up so it didn't chafe on the body and be annoying when you were sleeping. And we're going to look at some old photographs of museum displays from Louisiana with all kinds of techniques and tools. And we're going to look at all of the pieces of that bed covering. And I just wanted to tell you what a typical trousseau was. It might include 12 blankets, 2 or 3 bedspreads, 6 sheets, 12 towels, 1 mattress, feather mattress covering, 1 bolster, and 2 pillows, plus 3 mattresses stuffed with Spanish moss. These would be, the young couple would be expecting and hoping for a large family. And so they wanted to have all kinds of things. everything you're looking at in this photograph was hand spun and hand woven, all the way from the mattress cover to the mosquito netting, which I always find just extraordinary. We're going to talk about some of the key figures in Louisiana Acadian weaving, and this is the LeBlanc family, and I'll talk more about them. And in this picture, one of the daughters is bowing cotton to open it up and get ready for carding. One of the daughters is carding, and the mother is helping the father to wind a warp on a very large warping board. And this is that same couple, the parents on the left, holding stacks of blankets that were woven by Madame LeBlanc. And on the right, we have my teacher, Norman Kennedy, in Louisiana, talking about a specific blanket in one of the collections of Acadian weaving in that area. And I love this particular blanket because I imagine the weaver starting out and thinking, okay, I'm going to put in a brown stripe every 6 or 8 inches. And as she wove, she looked at her diminishing supply of brown cotton, and her stripes got farther and farther apart as she wove. And weavers at this time did not intend for their seams to match in the middle. It just wasn't part of what they were aiming for. It was not part of their aesthetic. So she might have been quite pleased with the blanket she ended up with, although she had been hoping for more brown stripes. And we'll also look at these cottonade quilts, which are made with hand-spun, hand-woven, and indigo dyed or natural cotton-colored fabrics that were made for work clothing, and when that clothing wore out, would eventually be made into quilts. And looking back at this historic cloth, we have so much we can learn from these cottonade quilts. And here's another one. And they're beautiful all on their own, but I'm also just fascinated by the fabrics that are in those quilts. Here is a little scrap of a cottonade quilt, and I really like being able to see both the front and back. They did a lot of color and weave, also as part of their creating pattern on a 2-harness loom. So there's all kinds of interesting details that we'll look at and discuss. And I'm finishing up with 2 pictures of Gladys Clark, who is the last and most famous, well, not the last, but one of the last most famous Acadian weavers. And this is some of her work. And one more page with a nice little variety of stuff. And I will be bringing with me a lot of historic textiles. I have quite a number of textiles, one from New England and quite a few from Louisiana, and all kinds of samples representing various fabrics. So we'll have textiles to look at and handle, modern samples. And because I'm teaching my Acadian workshop the 2 days before this lecture, this seminar, I will also have a table loom with a setup for cordon, which is one of the particular Acadian styles. And so people can try that out and maybe weave a little sample.
Well, that's a happy organization there that you'll be able to have the loom afterwards to have a little hands-on too. So, so it sounds like primarily though this is going to be lecture-based, but then with a little bit of hands-on and demo mixed in there.
That's right. There'll be a slide lecture, plenty of time for questions, and also for looking at cloth and discussing that as well. Students do not need to bring anything except potentially note-making materials or devices, and I will share my lecture notes with the students in a digital form, along with a reference document with lots of, well, there aren't a lot, but there are some books, there are some websites, there are various resources relating to the topic.
Amazing. And like you mentioned, you've also got the 2-day hands-on workshop on this as well. So if anybody's looking for that deeper dive hands-on experience to try it out more than just the demo, they can check out your 2-day class as well. I also feel like this is something that if somebody attends this seminar, it would probably really enhance their experience if they went on the tour. HGA has a tour on Monday, August 17th, that's going to be looking more at the Acadian weaving traditions in Louisiana and heading up to Baton Rouge. So if you're interested in all this Acadian stuff, you can really fill out your schedule. Again, that was Melissa Weaver Dunning talking about her L'amour du Maman class, the 3-hour seminar taking place on Sunday, August 16th. And you can find more information about these and all of our other workshops online at weavespindie.org. You can look under the Convergence tab, head to the sessions and leaders, and it is all there. We are going to be offering these live session spotlights every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time until mid-November, and the recordings are going to be available on HGA's YouTube channel. So if you're interested in any other classes, please join us, and we look forward to seeing you there.